Okay. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of TUD for July 25th, 2023. Let's see here. Mr. Hall, how about if you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item is public forum. We would like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act on an item unless it was noticed on the agenda. Person speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. Are there any members of the public that'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Melissa.
Do we have anybody?
No, I know.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, consent calendar. Item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of June 27th, 2023 and special board meeting of June 28th, 2023. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director's statement of meetings attended and or travel expenses and claim summary for June 2023. Item number 3, resolution to approve appropriations limit for fiscal year 2024. Item number 4, resolution authorizing district staff to place TUD delinquent water and sewer charges on the 2023-2024 Tuolumne County secured property tax bill. Item number 5, investment report as of June 30th, 2023. Item number 6, reject claim for damages, claim number 23-02, Kevin Laura claimant. Item number 7, consent to assign the agreement for master meter water service between Sonora Water Company and TUD to Precision Investment LLC. Item number 8, approve the salary range for the new trainee level of the regulatory compliance specialist position classification series.
Okay, now the big question. Any directors wish to pull any of these items? Let's just start and go around the horn here. Director Boatwright.
Well, actually, I'd like to defer to Director Ringen.
Okay, Director Ringen.
Okay,
As to,
well, I'll tell you which items I want to pull here in just a minute, but first I want to say that I'm pretty put out that we canceled the meeting, the first meeting of the month. And I don't know who made that decision, but I'm not happy about it at all, because now what we've got is a consent calendar that is crammed. And half the items I don't even think belong in the consent calendar. I know in 2012, I told Steve Sheffield that there'd be no way in heck that I was going to ever okay the claim summary unless it was unless there was something more than just one big number that we were supposed to rubber stamp. And Mr. Sheffield went ahead and thanked me and has broken it out now to where there's you can read each and every check that goes out other than the payroll. So I just thought I'd mention that. So I just don't think it's fair that everything should be crammed into one meeting. I just think that was out of place. So I want to pull the claim summary and number 3, number 5, number 7, and number 8.
Okay, so claim summary is number 2, number 5, the investment report, number 7, the master meter water service agreement, and number 8, the new position. Okay,
Correct.
let me go around now before we start on that and see who else it wants to pull items, if you don't mind. Barbara, did you need to pull anything?
I'm covered.
Okay, Glenn, how about you?
Number 6.
Number 6.
Mr. President, if I may,
Uh-huh.
I'd like to pull items 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. Furthermore, I would like to make a motion that these items be tabled to a future TUD district meeting where they can be pulled back to regular business as individual items.
Okay, so you said 3, 4, 7, and 8,
Also number 5.
and number 5. Okay, and you're also making a motion to table them, to put them on a future agenda.
Correct, under regular business.
So the appropriations limit, the delinquent water sewer charges, the investment report, the master meter agreement, and the salary range for the new position. Correct? Am I correct on that?
Yes, you are correct. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Director Boatright a question. Would that be in the interest of, rather than putting these on today's agenda, doing the regular business today, going without a whole lot of discussion? For an example, I would like to pull a few of those items also and discuss them. So what I'm hearing you say is in the interest of time and not making this, over, let's say, 3-hour meeting to actually table that's what I hear. So I would second that.
Yeah, Director Balin, my intention is to, actually put these to a future meeting where they can be under regular business to allow for public comment. I believe each of these items deserve their own individual attention instead of being lumped under a consent calendar.
Steve?
So just for everybody's understanding, first of all, item 3, the resolution to approve the appropriations limit is a time critical matter. It's required to be done by July of each year. It is very much a housekeeping item. There is no choice. A utility company never is subject to the appropriations limit because we charge by services, not by property tax. And again, like I said, that should be in effect by July 1st of each year. It should actually been on the previous meeting, as Director Ringen stated. Item number 4, again, is mission critical. That's a housekeeping item. There's 13 accounts that we wish to put on the county's tax roll. This again is a housekeeping item we do every year. Those items have to be approved by our board today to go on to the county to be approved and be on this year's tax roll. Otherwise, those will be put off for another year. So if there is further discussion, I don't see what it could be or public comment on that, but I would ask that go to regular business today. The other items, whatever we need to do, they typically are under consent items in there. Not board action, not public input typically, but again, those 2 items are time critical. They need to be addressed today. Thank you.
Director Boatright, would you, after Steve's comments, would you like to amend your motion to exclude 3 and 4? Or are you still holding fast on that?
Yeah, well, at minimum, they would need to be moved to regular business for open comment and presentation, but
Well, you can pull them and we can discuss them.
of those items, but regular business is loaded up. I mean, this meeting, and I'm not trying to, short circle this thing. This agenda is huge and, in my opinion, too big a bite.
Director Balin?
Just to maybe come up with some compromise if those. Are then to be moved into regular business for record discussion. Maybe we should then table item 12 and 13. They're a little more routine. And that may make room for those time sensitive ones that Steve is requesting be discussed or remain, but move into regular business.
Mhm.
Certainly, that, as far as a compromise such as that. Although if this is, items that should be approved by July, we're already late, as far as we're at second meeting
So,
in July, so.
okay, so are you taking off 3 and 4 for your motion?
I'll amend it to, bring that down to regular business as individual items.
Well, we can't,
So that,
we can't put them on regular business. They're on the consent calendar, but we can pull them and discuss them, correct? And vote on them individually. I mean, that's, which is it?
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same
It's the
thing. So, yeah,
It's the same.
These two items should be second
that's right.
minutes.
Okay. So I'm trying to accommodate you, Director Boatright. So can we remove items 3 and 4 from your motion?
yes.
So that we can discuss them today and get them done.
Correct.
Okay,
That's acceptable. Thank you.
okay. And then on your second, are you okay with that, Barbara?
Yes, I'm okay. So that means, just so I understand, I'm okay. I don't quite have it, the same issue up on those in terms of
Mhm.
that. So I'm just looking at moving the whole thing forward. Director Ringen had some well, let me see if I understand this. Is any Director Boatright, are you requesting, just so I understand, any of these items tabled for another meeting, such as item 8?
Yes, items 5, 7, and 8 would still need to, under the motion, still need to come up at a future meeting under regular business.
Okay, I think I understand.
Are you okay with that?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so can we bring it to discussion now? Dawn, you had a question?
Well, I feel like number 8 is worthy of a discussion today too. It shouldn't take too long. All the information that we would bring to a regular meeting is in this agenda. So
Mhm.
Yeah, but my understanding is under the consent calendar, there's no public comment on any of these.
well, by bringing them into the regular business,
By pulling them. Mhm.
then it's open for public comment.
And just so you know, there's always comment on the consent calendar. Public comment is always allowed on the consent calendar.
Good.
Okay, so let's see. So we're back to number 8. Director Boatright, do you want to pull that from your motion then too?
Correct.
There is a time constraint on 7 as well. It's kind of a perfunctory thing. We have an existing agreement. New people are taking over. Sonora Water and to complete the transaction has to have this signed. Really just assigning the existing agreement.
Mhm.
I don't know technically when that's due, but Sonora Water Company requested it go on to the first available meeting, and it would have been on the last meeting. But again, these are typically routine items.
Yes, they are.
Historically, the board seen in consent and done that, and if you have questions, we certainly can bring it back. But again, my suggestion recommendation is that all of these items can be moved to regular business, if that's a big distinction between the two. I think a lot of these can be addressed and resolved, not have to be tabled going forward, but
Mhm.
that the boards will.
I tend to agree because these are certainly item 3, item 4, item 6 are all issues that come regularly before us in the consent calendar. And with either on an annual basis or as needed. So those items certainly are consent calendar worthy. Barbara?
I guess I just want to comment on this, and that is the feeling that the board, with all due respect, that the burden, we cancel a meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, and then these things may appear really routine and minor to those that deal with these every day, but from a board's perspective, it just feels like we've got to sort of refresh, we've got questions, but these are now suddenly time sensitive, so we have to be cognizant of that. And I'm only speaking for myself and Director Ring, and you brought up not liking this, and I have my own reasons for not liking this, because from my vantage point, a meeting was canceled and now we've got this time sensitive stuff on here. That's all. And so I'm just registering my displeasure with that, because even though these could be called routine or no brainer, I have questions. This is money. I want to see about this, where this money is going, and maybe put it in layman's terms. And Steve, you always answer the questions, I think, to make sure I understand. But it just is odd to me that we cancel a meeting. Now we've got time sensitive, and the option of tabling these to another meeting doesn't seem to be prudent in the course of doing business. And I just want to register that it just doesn't feel good from my perspective.
Okay, duly noted. All right, well, we have a motion to table items 5 and 7 now, correct, Director Boatright?
5, 7, and 8.
I thought you were going to pull 8 and we were going to talk about that today.
No, that was items 3 and 4.
Okay. Okay, all right. Would you like to pull 8? Because I know Abby would like to get this going today if we can.
Well, I do have questions on number 8 and such as yeah, I just feel that should be a regular business item instead of.
Abby, would you like to comment?
I'm prepared to present this item as a regular business item, and you can answer any questions that you have if you'd like today.
I'd prefer to put it off to a future meeting, table it as well as items 5 and 7.
We received short notice on a resignation, so this is a critical position for us, and the fact that our recruitment was hindered by the trying to find a specialized position, and we had very low applicants and none qualified for the position and no internal candidates. So we had to kind of regroup as we do and rework the position to allow for us to broaden the recruitment and bring in someone with some other types of experience, but that can do the job, but we can't interview people that don't have the qualifications for the position. So that wasn't going to be on the last meeting. It truly is a last minute. We were trying to get it in so that we can give Trevor and his crew a break and make sure that we're meeting all our regulatory requirements. So thank you. I respect that this is a last minute item, but I'm happy to present it if you'll allow me to. Thank you.
And then we get back to fully stacked, currently regular business.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to hear from Director Ring or Director Jacobs if they have an opinion on, or so we could get a consensus before we actually vote on going forward with a full agenda or tabling any items.
Do you have any comments, Director Ring or Jacobs?
Well, like I said, I pulled the claim summary, number 3, number 5, number 7, and number 8. And those were pulled not just to have an exercise of pulling them, but I had questions on each one of them. And I'm not voting for anything until I understand it. And that's not what the board was elected to do. We're here to support the ratepayer and to make sure that TUD stays strong. And you don't do that by rubber stamping something that you don't understand. That's my opinion, and it's been that way ever since I've been on the board since 2012.
Okay, well, that's fine. But again, there's several of these items are items that come up regularly on the consent calendar. So there are a few that are different, but most of these are regularly consented items. Director, do you have any more comments?
I'm done.
Okay, Director Jacobs.
Yes, so my suggestion would be that we identify the items that are time sensitive. We've got to be good stewards of doing our job, even though events happen that are beyond our control. I would echo the sentiment that it was probably not wise to cancel a meeting and jam everything into this meeting. So I would just like to echo that. So if we could maybe come to consensus of what items are time sensitive that as good stewards, we should address today, or at least listen to today, and then table those items that are not time sensitive.
Okay, and all right. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. The way I understand it, items 3, 4, and 8 are the time sensitive items, correct? Correct, Steve?
Sorry.
3, 4, and 8 are the time, your items that are time sensitive are 3 and 4,
Correct.
plus Abby's item of number 8. 7, 2, oh yeah, 7, correct. Yeah. Well, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second, so we're gonna have to deal with that.
I will withdraw my second.
Okay.
Because I think I think we're back to square one, and I think that I got a sense from the board that we're gonna slug through this.
Okay. All right, so you withdrew your second. Is there another second for Director Boatright? Okay, then your motion died for lack of second. All right, well then, let's, we virtually got every item pulled with the exception of item number 1, which is the minutes. So let's go on to number 2. Approval of reimbursement claims director's statement. I believe Director Ringen, that was your item?
Correct. On page 8 of 23. Who and what is and why is Dark Trace Holding $28,197.10? What is that all about?
Corey, would you like to respond?
It's cybersecurity infrastructure that we implemented that traces all connectivity in and out of the office and to the internet, so we can actually see what's really going on.
This is part of the plan we implemented last year, dealing with the cybersecurity, both with our insurance company as well as with Corey. We don't like to divulge too much information because people are out there figuring out what we use and how we use it. But this was a budgeted item within this year's IT budget specifically for cybersecurity.
The
Second year.
Second year, excuse me. Thank you,
Okay.
Corey.
I didn't recognize it. Then on 16 of 23, we have Michael Anthony Cognetti, place and compact asphalt, $11,560. Is this part of that project up there in that just got completed?
It was the Ridgewood project.
The which one?
Ridgewood.
Yeah, that's what, okay, so that, all right. Then also on that same page 16 and 23, Michael Benjamin Nessie, $22,125 plus $7,350 for overtime. What in the world?
So I don't know, this is Eric and Jennifer's. He's the project manager for the regional wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, I had a feeling that might be the answer, but you know, 7,000 plus for overtime. Good Lord.
He's got to work around Kiewit's schedule. So
And
if they're there, then he's got to be there.
Yeah, I can add to it too. Part of his time with overtime is coordinated with Hewitt, and they actually repay us for it. I can't say it's all the overtime, but we do have arrangement. If Hewitt requests, he does over and above what we normally do, then we actually bill them and they pay their share.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it.
That's it. Okay, let's vote on these individually then. So I'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item number 2. Melissa, do you have a comment?
We didn't do one.
I know we didn't. I know we didn't.
Start with one and then.
I was going to come back to it, but you want to do it that way?
We should, yeah. go.
Okay. All right, then we'll take up item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting. Are there any additions or changes to the minutes for June 27th?
Yes, I have a correction to my correction. The consent calendar, excuse me, on the minutes, item Roman numeral 2, item number 1. I attended the LAFCO meeting on the 12th. That's it,
Oh, instead of June the 4th?
correct.
Okay.
And
You got that, Melissa?
that was my mistake.
Your mistake. Okay. All right. Okay. If there's not any other changes or additions, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, now item 2, the reimbursement claims. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item number 3. Approve appropriations limit for fiscal year 2024. Steve, would you like to comment?
Sure. Essentially, Proposition 13 amended the state law to require all government agencies who receive property tax revenue to go through this appropriations calculation. The calculation itself has to be done ahead of time, has to be posted on the website as well as up front. We've had that for 15 days prior to a regularly scheduled board meeting. We were anticipating doing it last month. We didn't do it. It came back to this one, so this is as soon as available. In your board packet, you have the calculation as well as the resolution. As I mentioned earlier, essentially, we have a budget of $25 million of revenue. We received our budgeted property tax is 1.3 million for next year. So you compare that to the calculated limit of 4.4 million, we're 3 million plus under the limit. We just have to show that. For some agencies where property tax is a sizable portion, it may affect their actual appropriation limit, which they need to adopt each year. This is it. This is typically, like I said, the time we do it each year. You can see we're far under the excess. So it's just that we have to have a board resolution that's submitted both to the county as well as the state of California saying we're under the appropriations limit. Here's the calculation. It's been posted and the board adopts the resolution. And the resolution basically just says the limit is 4.4 million, passed and established. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Steve? Director Ringen.
Thank you for explaining that, because that was exactly why I pulled it. I wanted to know how and why we were going through this exercise. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And this is an annual thing we go through.
An annual required calculation for anyone who receives property taxes.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Steve?
We have a question. So why is it, I know you touched on it earlier, but could you explain again why there's such a gap between what we could be receiving and what we're actually receiving?
Main reason is because we're an enterprise fund and we're required by law to charge rates sufficient to cover our operational cost. We receive property tax due to Prop 13 and the way it's been passed through to different agencies within the county on here. But again, ever since Prop 13 came out, an agency such as ourselves, property tax is typically going to be 10% or 20%, not even 20%, depending where you are. Some areas such as, Murphy's, Marin, San Francisco, whatever, their property tax is obviously going to be a completely different component of what they have. But for us here, our property tax is 1.3 million out of a total revenue base of 25 million.
So my question is, why couldn't it be a higher number than 1.3
The
million?
property tax?
Yes.
The property tax was established at the time Prop 13 came about, and specifically the county tax controller is responsible for assessing the property tax as well as for determining the property values based on that. But TUD has no say in that. It was established at that time, and going forward, it's property values, development. You can see what Arnold did with new golf courses, new Murphy's and sorts of that. So their property tax base has gone up significantly. For us, the two casinos don't really add to our property tax base because they're a sovereign nation. But again, the property values do in that, but Prop 13 limits it to a 1% increase. But as an enterprise fund, prior to this, we were just a department underneath the county. And so as part of that, the county is going to have their own appropriations limit, their own property tax value, and how that gets divvied up. But we don't have any say in how much we get or changing that.
So the 1.3 million is determined by the counties?
That's correct.
Okay, by the county of Tuolumne.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Steve, could you run through for me the higher number, fiscal year 23-24 limit 4.5? Where does that number come from?
The state of California and the county of Tuolumne.
Okay, so is that an actual fund number, or is that just an estimated number from the state? And
it's a roll. The calculation requires it to be from when it was first established with Proposition 13, and then it's a roll forward number. So the first line item says fiscal 23 limit. You would have seen that in this appropriations limit from last year. Then we have weighted growth factors that are provided both by the state of California and county of Tuolumne with a per capita cost of living change, and then a population change for us to establish the new limit. Next year, when we bring this back to you in July, the starting number will be the 4,450,000. But again, ever since TUD was formed, we've never come close because we are required to charge sufficient services for our operations. And for us in city of Sonora and county of Tuolumne, I wouldn't anticipate the property tax ever approaching close to the limit.
okay, just to kind of, is that 4.45 then a total assessment by the state, just an appraised potential number?
No, you're essentially taking the first number, the 4.136, multiplying by the per capita cost of living change of 4.4, subtracting the population change of 0.35 to calculate the 4.4. And the only time, again, this would ever matter is if the budgeted property tax were to exceed that number. If we were over the limit, then we'd have an appropriations limit in place specifically dealing with the property tax revenue. However, you can see we clearly don't.
Are you done, Director Boatright?
He's probably going to address
Yeah, I
this
think
with
so.
what we've just said.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, yeah, thank you. If I may, it might help Director Boatright. This Proposition 13 was a predecessor of Prop 218. And all it really does is agencies, public agencies that rely upon funding from property taxes, they're only allowed to raise the amount of money that they are allowed to use or allowed to collect was fixed back in the 80s. And it only increases by a particular formula that Steve has just outlined. This is largely inapplicable to TUD, since TUD largely provides its services based on cost of service. And so it's not extra money available to TUD. It's a cap on revenue and it's a cap on spending, but neither of those caps really apply to TUD in this situation. Nevertheless, it is a requirement. It is a statute that requires compliance, hence the reason why Steve put it on the agenda. If that helps, or if you have additional questions for me, please let me know. I just wanted to give a little bit more background. Thank you.
I think I have a little bit better understanding of what it is and how it's applied. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Just a question. Is there anything that we could do to increase our slice of the pie from the county's property tax?
No.
Taxes. Okay. So just curious, how much does the county get each year in property taxes? Ballpark?
I can bring that number back to you if you'd like, but.
Okay.
You know, you can think of all the governmental agencies
Right.
in Tuolumne County and how that's spread out between the schools and, you know, other utility agencies and county operations and city operations and doing that. But
So
I'm sure you could Google property tax in Tuolumne County and have the number readily available, but it's a big number.
So the slice of our slice of the pie determined by the Board of Supervisors?
No, it was actually determined at the time of Prop 13. Prior to that, there's been multiple different systems for how property taxes are allocated in the state of California. There was a system back then. We used to have redevelopment agencies. We had all kinds of things that decided how that is. The primary role of the county is to apply what the existing state law is as far as how these property taxes are allocated. When Prop 13 came in, they kind of said, we're going to take a freeze right here. Okay, we got to stop doing what we're doing and we're going to do this new system. So at that time, they determined who gets what. And so at that time, TUD's portion or share was determined on that. Then going forward, the property tax assessor's office are the ones who track when property is sold, improved. When we had the housing crash, they were reassessing properties, but it's a constantly moving target. But, you know, again, it's very complicated. There's been dozens of law changes since the 80s with this, but our share right now, and again, you know, we're set up so that our rates are what's supposed to pay our operational costs. The property taxes would be the small portion, the 1.3 million that we have, that would be considered more discretionary income on it. But as far as the slice of the pie or anything else, like I said, the primary responsibility for receiving, assessing, and distributing that lies with individual counties in the state of California.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the appropriations.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further?
Since we're doing item by item, do you also want to call for public comment at each item?
Sure. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
No.
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 4. Steve, that's you again.
All right, so this item is not one that would come any other time than the second meeting in July. As it stands right now, as a property tax receiving agency in the county of Tuolumne, our water code and the state water code allows us to place delinquent water or sewer charges onto the county's secured property tax roll. It's the only time of the year you can do it. The county is very strict in how it's to be done. We have to make sure liens are in place. We have to identify them. We have to notify customers. We have to bring it to the board and the board has to approve it. Then it'll go to the county board of supervisors. They will approve it and do it. For the most part, we don't like to do this. We don't want to turn people off. We don't want to put them on the tax roll. We make every effort to do payment plans, to collect these debts and do that. So historically, we didn't do it. During the COVID, we didn't put anything on the tax roll. Basically, we collect it, we file a lien, we've been doing that. However, after we came out of COVID, we had some accounts that had not paid for the previous 3 years and had accumulated large balances. So we went in and we now analyzed it. This was a year ago, and we analyzed those. And these were individuals that were paying their property taxes, but were not paying us. And so within this, we did it. We coordinated with the county tax collector. We identify a list and we bring it to you. It has to be the second meeting in July. And then that will go to the board supervisors meeting, I believe the first meeting in the first week of August to be approved, specialized format and everything else. So we really addressed that a year ago and identified those accounts and put it on. And again, it's just a collection tool, if you will, in there. We have 14,000 accounts. We work really hard at keeping our delinquents low and coordinating with people for payment plans, for available low-income assistance, whatever we can do. But we really tried to do that last year. I believe we ended up with 24, 28. Emily actually helped us last year doing that. But we had about 27. Now, once it goes on the tax roll, when you get your tax bill for next year, it'll show your normal property tax, but it'll also show your delinquent TUD bill underneath that. And so then the county is now responsible for collecting us. Those individuals can no longer just pay their property tax and not pay their TUD bill. They have to pay both. And then the county does it. And then usually twice a year, the county gives us a report of what they've collected and we reconcile that to our records. So going into it, we did the same thing here. And you can see on the second page, came up with these 13 accounts. These are all higher dollar items. Basically, we took a look at anything over 2,000. We coordinated, reached out to the customers, did whatever we can. And these are the final 13 that we are recommending go onto the tax roll. Again, it's more of a utility billing collections type thing that, we do all the time, but this will always come the second meeting in July of each year. So with that, like I said, the county, in order to put it onto the tax roll, requires the board's resolution accepting these and notifying these. So again, happy to answer any questions with delinquent tax accounts on the tax roll.
Any questions for Steve? Director Boatright.
Steve, do we actually collect the full amount that is put on the tax roll, or is there a service fee through the county for doing this?
There is a fee that the county charges for any of these, and it is included in this dollar value. These individuals you do not have the ability to pay less than what you owe. People can go up to 5 years not paying their property taxes. And then at that time, the county will put it up for auction. And these individuals have to decide whether they want to just let the property go at auction or if they want to pay it plus back penalties and interest.
Okay. So any fee that Tuolumne Utilities District incurs is added to the bill as well?
It's included within that. They have a fixed table of charges. This year, I don't remember, I want to say $52 was last year. something on that, but each of these individual ones, we provide them the balance at this time, plus the fee that the county pays, and that's what's included in this balance shown. And the letter to the customer also identifies that and identifies that the county requires a current lien within the last 12 months to have been placed on the property. So again, they can't sell any of these or any other property they own within the county of Tuolumne without clearing these balances first.
And the $2,000 is kind of the minimum amount that Tuolumne, that we look at
Well,
as far as putting them on this?
yeah, as I said before, prior to COVID, we were not placing on the tax roll. There's been a variety of different programs over the years. They used to have one where it's TUD, which you would just submit all your accounts receivable that you wanted that was delinquent to them, and then the county becomes a collector. We didn't like doing that. We wanted to keep it in-house. So prior to COVID, we typically would only submit sewer accounts because we can't really disconnect a sewer account. During COVID, we did not submit any of these at all. So last year, Emily had the suggestion we looked at together, and we started off looking at all balances. We every month we review the aging to see what's out there. And we looked at that and we started off with, okay, if we took everybody that's delinquent, how many accounts would that be? And how much money would that be? If we took everybody over 1,000, if we took everybody over 2,000, 3,000, and we started that way. And I think last year we landed on 3,000 or 2,500. So we did the same exercise this year with April, our customer service supervisor. And we started off probably at 1,000 or 1,500. And again, some of these people, these are the accounts that are way delinquent. I mean, we're talking typically more than a year, more than 2 years on here. So again, this is what we came up with using at least a starting point of 2,500. But some of those we've made payment arrangements. And so it's not just blindly everybody over 2,500. And again, if we knew it, we might include somebody lesser, but these are the 13 ones we're recommending for this year.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay, any public comment?
Oh, I know.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the motion, to approve the item. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 5, investment report. Steve, you're the man.
I'll just make a quick comment here. The board adopted an investment policy. The investment policy says we'll prepare and present a formal detailed report every quarter. And so again, we can't really present this. We couldn't have presented this at the last meeting. It'd be this. We could bring it back at a future meeting if you like. What we've done so far since the board did an investment policy and the board approved hiring an investment advisor. We've had the investment advisor come in on an annual basis. He's always readily available. If we'd like him to address anything, we can. We get this report every month. We review it. The quarterly report's what's being included in your packet. You can see it's a lot of pages. And the first time we presented, Director Ringen went all the way through it. And I said, I'll let you know if you need to know anything in there. But I go through it in detail. I do that. If there was something that I thought needed board action or needed addressing extra, I think I would have put it in there. But historically, we've been doing it as a consent item. In here, you all know, I'm assuming you watch and read the news and the newspaper and everything else. We continue to have a volatile investment situation. With the investment policy, we essentially have approximately $10,000 with the investment advisor. And then we continue to hold approximately $12.5 million with the state of California's LAIF fund, local agency investment fund, which essentially is a mutual money market fund. Zero risk. It is what it is. Interest rates are still going up. We expect another hike, one more at least. We'll see what that means. 22 was bad for investments. 23 has been better for investments. COVID rocked the economic world, just like for us, between inflation and interest and everything else. But, this is pretty much a straightforward report. A lot of details. Some of it may have been more interest to other board members, but I met individually with the investment advisor and went over this report and some of the key items. And again, everybody keeps talking about the uncertain future. And that's what it is. But, our investment policy is online and available. You all should have it. There's no updates to investment policy. We'll do a full review once a year, typically right around January or December. And we'll have him speak to you regarding that. But I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time on the investment report. But again, if you'd like to defer it or table it to a future meeting or regular business, we certainly can do that. But it's a pretty straightforward report and consistent with the one we presented 3 months ago.
Okay. Director Bailey?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I just want to make sure I'm reading what I'm reading. For an example, let's see, page 17. I'm just double checking. Let's see, 17. Okay, so this is the difference between 623 and 323. Am I reading that right? We lost a little bit? Total market value?
That's correct.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
And then on page, I think it's 24.
Now, before you leave, one addition too,
Okay.
the one you called out is really talking about yield. I know it shows market value in there.
Yeah,
When we invested with this firm and we put the 10,000 in there, it's very much designed to be a long-term investment. We gave them 3 to 5 years. Prior GM was insistent we needed to do this. I'm a fan of Leif. Okay, so we kind of split both of those. But the idea being, and you think about where were we at 3 years ago? We went into this investment at probably the lowest point since the bubble crash that we had before. The idea was take this 10 million, invest it for the next 3 to 5 years and get us as much as we can. So what's happened is when we bought in, the yields were the lowest they'd ever been. Since then, they're going up. So if you look at the market yield right now, what we're buying is getting us almost 5%. Okay, whereas before we're getting like 0.3% on some of this. However, these reports are done on a quarterly basis. So that portfolio is a snapshot, like you said, as of March 31st versus June 30th. But if we sold every single thing we had, then that would result in that $47,000 loss is what they're showing here. So throughout this report, you will see it being compared to the prior quarter, which again, but in the long term, we've been with them, I guess going on 3 years now that we've done that. So anyway, hope that helps. Now, the other page you mentioned, Barbara.
okay. Yeah, no, that was very helpful. It would be page 23.
Okay.
And it's the total rate of return annualized since inception. Like you said, we began investing in 21. Okay. So could you do me a favor and interpret this graph?
Yeah, and this is the one when I have my notes from when I talked to him on the phone and asked him, because he used to be the finance director at a sewer plant, a sewer utility district. And again, some of the things, to stress, one, it's a long-term strategy, like I mentioned. And so, you have to look at the period of time in there. We joined when there was a record low and that. And so the investments have been kind of lagging, but like a lot of our economy, the ship is kind of slowly righting itself. The good news is, we're yielding 4.9% right now on everything we're buying. Leif continues to go up, but it's slowing down and it's about to stop. Leif right now is 3.3. So if we put $1 in this, we're gonna get 4.9. We put $1 in that, we're gonna be 3.3. There's a page in here that talks about, I think it's pages 15 and 16, talking about policy and compliance. You know, our investment policy is built on safety, liquidity, and yield is basically in that order. And so our portfolio is well diversified. There's been a tightening, but the future looks like higher rates. Page 23, I wrote controversial. Because basically what he's showing here is that when we came in 2021, the rates were falling. The interest was doing that. And we slowly invested over the next year, first 5 million, then another 5 million. So what this is showing is basically in the 2 years we've been, the investments February 2021. So in the 2 years we've been with them, our total value is less than what our book value is. And I think one of the first pages in there talks about how much we've invested in that. And I was just going to see if I could see that. Sorry about that. Let me get back to the page I was at. Almost there. Three. And that page, specifically 23, is not the value as much as what they're calculating the rate of return. So the rate of return is going up. You can see on the far side there that we're beating the benchmark. The benchmark is this 1 to 5 year US Treasury. So for the last 12 years, we're positive, even though the market's still been a negative return on that as well. So it's expected that the value is going to go up. The earnings are going to go up. But again, I can't stress enough, it's a long-term investment designed to be most likely over the course of 5 years. And we were really looking at that time saying, are we going to require or need this $10 million in the next 5 years? We had already taken care of regional treatment plant, the sewer plant, as far as funding that with reserves and grants. And we didn't know the status yet of Sierra Pines treatment plant and everything else. So the message is stay the course. The feds have one more rate increase, they think. Inflation is slowing. Not quite as fast as everyone had hoped, but we're still in for a lot of volatility and still doing this. However, we're continuing to have our yields increase.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Sorry,
So-
you're very patient. I appreciate it. It's-
No, I know you're unpacking it and that, you know, it's hard to know what is just sort of canned stuff and what's so, okay, this last thing, page 25. And again, this is the reporting, the total market value. On this chart, it looks like we gained a little bit. Between 623 and 323.
So it's not real easy to follow in here, but you'll see typically two different accounts. One's called 10768. And you know, that one is dealing with the CAM investment. And then what they try to do is to bring in the Leif investment and show what that is. The total, this $12 million, if you go back to the staff report where I say in there, we have 9.6 with CAM Chandler, and we have 12.5 with Leif. Between 331 and 630, the Leif value has gone up. Now, part of that reason for going up is that if we have any extra funds here, we contribute that directly to LAIF.
Oh, okay.
So we want to keep our checking account as low as we can, and then we put it over here and we're earning that 3% over here. So this increase is not just due to the market value, it's also due to us having funds available.
Good. That, I have no more questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Ringen.
Okay, well, thank you, Director Balin, because that was two of the pages that I had questions on, so that cleared up some of that. But Steve, would you be kind enough to explain what's going on pages 49 and 50? I do not like all those negative signs. By the way, I did got into self-abuse and I did go through this entire thing once again.
I'm sorry. Feel free to call me and we can do it together. Or again, I can't stress enough, the team at Chandler has been outstanding to work with. They would be more than happy to answer any board questions, to Zoom in anytime we want and everything else. But specifically pages 49 and 50, you mentioned there.
Yeah, if you look over in the far column.
Right. So that section of the report is one of the investment policies is that we are required to show the board, show the public for transparency, all transactions in this account. So the first section there dealing with acquisitions, that's where they're going out and they're buying new notes. Most of ours is in, and there's one of those donut charts that shows it, but most of our money is invested in US treasuries or similar treasuries. We don't invest in any individual stocks. These are all notes issued by these companies. So the first section there is the acquisitions. That's where we're going out and buying these notes and when they expire. And if you look at that kind of middle column, it talks about the yield. And you can see all of those are between 4 and 5%. So we've purchased those securities that are going to pay us between 4 and 5% interest. Good. Some of the earlier ones we bought were probably 2, 3%. Not so good. Down below are the dispositions. So either that's something that's coming due, like you look at, they're all US Treasury notes. The first two they had in there were earning 0.25%. So what they did is they made a decision. This isn't due until November, but because it's earning 0.25%, we're going to sell it right now at a loss. So they sold the first one at a loss of $1,000 and they're going to invest it in one that's earning 5%. So yes, you take that $1,000 loss today, but it's going to make up for itself in the increased interest earnings. So for this 3 months, they actually incurred $8,000 loss by selling these, but then reinvested it in all of those that were going to earn significantly more yield. And that's where this is just, here's what we bought, here's what we sold, and here's what we're going to yield.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That makes sense. I mean, when you look at the chart, you can't, anyways, me not being a financial person, I couldn't figure that out. But that what you just explained makes sense. So thank you.
Is that it, Director Ian?
Yep.
Anybody else? Director Boatright.
Thank you. And going through this, it certainly makes it a lot more understandable. And Director Balin had questions on page 1725. Also added to that would be page 29, which talk about portfolio characteristics. And I was wondering, what brings up the question, when we started our investment with this agency, it was going to take time to move over the investment funds from where they were to in this account. Has that been completed at this time, Steve? All of our available investment funds have been shifted over?
Trying to find the slide that'd be the best representation. So again, a couple good points brought up there. Chandler, this is what they do. They strictly do governmental agencies. They're not involved in anything else. They worked with us to develop the investment policy. The types of investments are very much driven by the state of California and what's allowable as a governmental agency, which is in the investment policy. It's in our audit report, what we can invest in. There's several pages in here that talk about compliance. There's pages in here that describe what we're invested in and what percentages that is. And yes, we did do it in stages. We transferred $5 million to them. They invested that over a period of a year doing to that. And then we invested another $5 million and they are investing that as well. As to what's been invested, that's kind of a moving target depending what the market's doing. Like those ones we just looked at, they sold to get a higher yield. Other ones, they might wait it out. But essentially pages 34 through 39 are going to show the individual investments by type of investments, if you will. So, you know, and there's various things and they have definitions for that. But, you know, these different notes is principally what they all are. There's some corporate notes in there. And then if you get to page 37, it shows a money market fund and the total market value is $14,000. The grand total of all our investments is 9.5. So right now they have everything invested except $14,000 as we stand at June 30th. And then they're constantly watching the other investments to say, is it time to cash out this treasury note, invest in another treasury note or whatever. We have talked several times about, we have $12.5 million in LAIF. Is it time to move it? I said, absolutely not. We don't know our cash requirements. This is before the rate increase, before Sierra Pines and everything else. Until we know what our requirements are, we're not going to be moving any additional funds into this investment. We're going to keep it where it's at until we know more about what our cash needs are, what our rates, our needs are going to be, and what else helps. So Chandler has the task of, you've got $10 million, make the most of it while keeping with safety, security, and diversity. He couldn't comment enough that he feels we have a very well-rounded, appropriately diverse fund for $10 million compared to his other agencies. So the direct answer is we're invested. Everything we moved over to them. Right now we have that 14,000 that's just kind of if they need to do something.
Is there a place in the report that would show the original inception? And I realize it's kind of a moving target if we're, because we staged our funds into the investment portfolio instead of just looking at a 3-month window. Is there some point where we can look at a bigger picture?
Usually in the holdings report or portfolio value, so I'll refer to that same page 39. It's showing the June 30th market value being $9,499,000. If you look 2 columns to the left, there's a cost value and a book value, and those showing 10 million. That would be how much we've invested with Chandler. So at this point in time, if we were to sell everything, we would have a $500,000 loss. But that doesn't take into account the yield that we continue to get from them.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments for Steve? Okay, any public comment?
Oh, I know.
Okay. All right, then bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
Excuse me, I'll move.
No, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 6, reject claim for damages. Who's got this one? Okay, Abby?
What your question, specific questions were on this one, but I realize this potentially is the first claim rejection on oh, I'm sorry. A little scratchy today, excuse me. So this could be the first one that you've seen. So rejection of claims is typically on the consent calendar. This is the first step that a member of the public has in order to file a claim with the district prior to any potential lawsuits. So what we do is, if I can handle it administratively per an 1992 resolution that says if it's anything more than our insurance deductible, I will bring it to the board for the board to formally reject and transfer over to our insurance company who represents the district. They have professional claims examiners who handle these cases every day and will do what is in the best interest of the district and the member of the public as far as if there is any legitimacy to the claim, if there should be a settlement, or if the district is not liable. So I work closely with them to handle that claim. We don't typically go into the details of the claim at the public meeting just because there is a chance that it could potentially go to litigation at some point.
Thank you.
This particular claim was, there was water that went through the property, allegedly from the ditch. It was during 9 atmospheric rivers that we had in, I guess that was January. And so there is some difference of opinions of where the water is coming from on this claim.
Great. And just for my own information, what's the criteria, the dollar amount for the handling it administratively?
So it would be anything above the district's deductible, which is $500. So it's a pretty low amount.
Wow.
We may want to bring that back to the board for consideration on a different amount, but typically that's something that might fall under that is if the district's truck throws up a rock in someone's windshield or something like that. So it's usually something pretty small like that that I would handle it administratively per our own policies and procedures.
So if it's over $500, it requires board action.
Correct. Just like we're doing today.
Yeah, we might want to consider making a change on that. But thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Abby on this item? Any public comment?
Not at the moment.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept.
I'll move second.
Okay. I'm picking, getting a little detailed here, but you said accept. You mean reject? Did you mean reject?
Accept the rejection.
Okay, all right, good. Just wanted to be sure. Just wanted to be sure. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, next one is the agreement for the master meter water service between Sonora Water Company, TUD, and Precision Investment. Who's got this one?
I might as well take it.
Okay.
I think it was Melissa who got notified by the Sonora Water Company several months ago. Just they were more than contemplating selling the business to a different person and wanted to know procedurally, how do we just transfer the agreement that or the contract or agreement we have with them? Of course, I reached out to Jesse. Jesse said there's a formal policy of a way to do this. Jesse advised us to take this route. We then waited for a few months for the Sonora Water Company to officially make this transfer. And so here we are today, sort of just transferring this from one company to the other. And if you're curious, because it might be, they are in good standing as far as financial goes with us, Steve, right? They owe us no money. They're not back. Right? So that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Don? Director Ringen.
So are we transferring from Sonora Water Company to this new Precision Investment LLC, that old contract from 2013?
The existing contract, yes.
Well, I read through that, and that's very troublesome to me. I'm glad to hear that they don't owe us any money anymore, because that was a big deal in that contract. But we have no way of knowing what hookups, new hookups may occur, other than them on an honor system telling us. And if I'm not mistaken, even worse, I believe they are the water company that was supplying their water to Valley Vista for dust control and compaction. And like I said, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. They actually had some of their customers would be taking a shower and all of a sudden there'd be no water. And it was because Valley Vista was taking all the water out of the tanks and running it down to their project. I don't like that contract at all. I think it needs to be redone, and some sort of guidelines put in there as to new hookups and so on. I mean, we have no way of knowing that, because none of our crew is ever going to be out there in their area, because it's beyond master meter.
Right. I don't know how applicable this is, but I asked the same question of Steve for a different entity, not the Sonora Water Company. What Steve relayed to me was Antonio and Travis are relentlessly pouring through every sort of avenue they have to research and find out if there's new connections. So we do have staff, Travis and Antonio, working on those sorts of things, but I don't know if that's applicable to Sonora.
And I'll chime in. You know, over the years, we've had a storied relationship with Sonora Water Company and the owner there. We've had several separate agreements dealing with other issues, but this main agreement has stayed in effect. Jesse's reviewed it. As far as your specific concern about connections, you know, they're required to report an annual report to the PUC each year that lists the number of connections. They are required to notify any rate changes to any potential ones. They have to notify us. We receive those regularly. And in this existing contract, it's very clear under new connections, customer agrees TUD shall have the right of reasonable inspection of customers' connection service records upon reasonable advance request. So we can go in and look at their billing records. You know, we have some employees who are customers, and they would just as soon be TUD customers. But, you know, the state of affair of their system, we've talked about this before, isn't really such. But I feel comfortable and confident that, you know, over the past 10, 15 years, we've been able to track any new connections. They came in and paid. There were how many, 40 homes on that development, Mill Villa. They had an additional 40 homes. They come in, paid the capacity fees ahead of time. So we've discovered that. We don't know the new owners. You're correct. But the new owners, by assigning this to them and them signing it, will be bound by the same one here. So I don't know what language, Jesse can probably chime in, what language we might want to change if we change this. But I do think we have the ability to reasonably see that they're not fudging us on, you know, records and everything else. So Jesse, any additional?
No, thank you, Steve. I think you covered it really well. There are two sections in that existing agreement regarding new connections. Both you and Don covered them both. There's one specifically addressed to new connections, and then there also is the PUC report where they're required to report to the California Public Utility Commission their rates, their connections, water quality, all the sorts of things that are required in that CPUC report. So as far as the connections go, I think that TUD can adequately monitor that under the existing language. If there are other concerns, or if there is, if TUD has specific amendments that it would like to make to that agreement, I'm happy to understand what those are and start a conversation with Sonora or the transferee and try to work out those amendments in a new agreement. If there is a strong enough desire to do that, they may want to make changes as well. So I'll stop talking.
Dr. Balin?
Yeah, I have a question on, we just adopted a rate increase. How is something like a rate increase reflected in this kind of agreement regarding capacity charges?
Yeah. In the existing agreement, that's first thing you run across, hey, these rates aren't right. Well, in the existing agreement, many of our wholesalers have the same language. Jesse in his office probably originally created it, but it refers to the present rates. So when there is a rate increase, we send a letter to all the wholesalers. They've been notified of the rate increase. They have been received the new rates, but they essentially get the same as all our other customers in terms of the percentage and free water or base water included and all those sort of things. So even though this agreement is old as far as the rates, the current rates they're being charged, they've been notified of the rate increase effective August 1st.
And I assume the rate increase back in 2016?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you went through it at that point as well.
Every year, the wholesalers receive their increase exactly the same as any other customer.
Okay. Any other comments? Director Boatright.
Question, so at this point, we presume, or, they've acknowledged 110 connections. Has the connection fee for 110 or capacity fees for 110 connections been paid, or how's that applied through a master meter?
The 110 again would be an old number. Like I just mentioned, we brought in 30 or 40 new ones on there. Our capacity fees in our water rules, as they stand right now, refer to the engineering's index for inflation. So capacity fees have done that. They're required to notify us when they get a new connection and pay for it at that time. And so the historical ones, when they first came in, however that was established and set up, in the past, there was some question about which ones, but they're all paid up on their current capacity charges or current number of connections.
Is the district obligated to the original format of this master meter agreement and this transfer?
Yes.
Sorry, I guess we caught you taking a little snack there, Jess.
Sorry, Jess. We're reaching out to you. No, if you
I
can hear
guess
us.
the question is the district
Jesse, is the
obligated?
district obligated to this agreement as it is in this transfer?
To accept the transfer?
No, are we obligated to transfer this agreement along in this? Because right now our
Yeah.
obligation is with Sonora Water Company. Could this be totally redrafted as far as the master meter agreement?
No, Director Boatright. The transfer of this agreement is specifically addressed in paragraph 17. And so if the way we set this up is as long as Sonora Water Company transfers it in writing, and that they're transfer this agreement in writing to the new entity, and the new entity agrees to be bound by it, that's all we're going to require, all TUD needs to require or can require. And the transferee is going to have to operate under the terms of this agreement under paragraph 17 in the agreement between Sonora and TUD. Sorry for the delay in getting back to you. I was moving between buttons here.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Steve or Jesse? Oh, yeah, Antonio, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. A couple things I wanted to address was, in the beginning of the Valley Vista project, there was a water main break. So, of Sonora Water Company's water main. So that might have been the situation where some customers didn't have water. I could be wrong. Eric Hall might know something else as far as, I'm not unaware of them using Sonora Water Company water for construction. They have a hydrometer from us, so I'm not sure if that issue with the lack of water from Sonora Water Company had anything to do with other than the water main break. As far as connection reporting, Beverly, I've been here about 10 years in my time. She's been very diligent ahead of me as far as she's been great about notifying me about new connections, getting fees paid. Steve's right, they paid connection fees for all the homes for the Millvilla mobile home park expansion all at once. So that was a 6-figure number. So that was nice. Also, if they happen to fail to pay a connection fee to us, in our water rules, there's a section about unauthorized connections, and their fee could be doubled if we catch them. So also their ability to expand is somewhat limited. So the park is basically, Millvilla is their water system, or they serve them. That's pretty much built out and paid for now. They have a small subdivision, which is really close to being built out, called Mountain Vista Court. And again, that's the one that I've done 5 or 6 of those, and they've always been great about letting me know ahead of time. That's just about built out. So there isn't a lot of expansion. It's fortunately close, and our field staff is really great. You know, a lot of times they'll drive by places, they'll bring it to my attention. So I don't have a lot of concerns about new connections going forward. If we miss it, again, they're going to be paid double the fee amount. So it's definitely in their interest to eventually pay them. And that's it.
I'd just like to say too, that Steve brought it up, but they're on the hook with the PUC to report their connections. And that's the auditing tool if need be. So because they're going to be in a lot more trouble with the PUC than they ever would be with us if they misrepresented that. So correct, Steve? Yeah. So any other questions?
I've got a question
Sure.
for Don, General Manager Don. Where does Sonora Water fit into the district's overall consolidation plan?
Okay, so the district, at least under this current leadership, the last several leaderships, we don't actively go out and pursue consolidation with any entity. We respect their desire to be independent. That being said, should they or any other entity want to come to TUD, we'd have a discussion of it, and then of course it would have to come to the to be fully vetted before we'd want to take over a system. Oftentimes, history has taught us that when we take on these other entities, water or sewer agencies, we're taking on a liability, not, it's not just a customer base and some revenue, we're taking on a liability. And just knowing a little bit about their current infrastructure, it's not something I'd want to take on happily, at least not without some sort of compensation, because our current ratepayers shouldn't bear the burden to upgrade their system.
So it's definitely not in our best interest to consider that.
I mean, not without a lot of forethought and a lot of dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure that it is a good fit for TUD.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding this item? Any public comment? Okay, any live public comment? Okay, bring it back to the board. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the motion as stated.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the item. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the final item under consent calendar This is Abby's item. Go ahead, Abby.
It is. Thank you. And thank you again for the opportunity to present this and get this moving along. I know that Eric and Trevor and his folks will be happy to hear that that you guys were allowed it to go forward. So the regulatory compliance specialist position has been a position at the district much longer than this October 2018, as you see in the background. However, a few years ago, as with other positions at the district, we created what's called a class series, very common in the world of HR, very common in public agencies. A class series, different levels of positions based on qualifications, experience, responsibility, consequence of error, things like that. So we have class series across the district in water treatment, wastewater treatment, utility worker, associate engineers, things like that. So when we received notice that our regulatory compliance specialist was moving on to a different path, we had limited time to start an advertisement. This is a very specialized position, a critical position for the district, very time sensitive in the reporting and sampling and things of that nature that we have high scrutiny from the state on. So we ran the position as is in the current class series of regulatory compliance 1 and 2, internally and externally per our rules and regs, our internal rules, personnel policy, and our MOU. And unfortunately, we didn't receive any internal candidates that were interested. So typically we get an existing water treatment operator who's experienced in regulatory compliance and sampling and all things water treatment related. So we didn't get that. And then what we found as we approached our July 17th, which was just last Monday, closing date for that position, is that we also had no qualified external candidates because it is specific to water treatment T2 or water treatment certification grade 2 with the state. And then also years of experience operating water treatment plants and in regulatory compliance. So we made quick work. I met with Trevor and Eric and quickly said we need to try and get some kind of an entry level position here where we can broaden our scope. We can evaluate candidates that don't have the specific experience fairly, because if you run a recruitment in a certain manner and you're very specific about minimum requirements, that it doesn't allow you to pick and choose which ones without those requirements that you get to evaluate. So here we decided that we thought it was appropriate to have a trainee position, which is again typical for a district classification such as water treatment and wastewater treatment. We have what's called an OIT, operator in training, in both of those classifications. So we thought it was appropriate to bring into the regulatory compliance specialist class series as well. Recruitment right now, especially the last couple of years, but right now is very challenging. It's across the board in all types of career paths, in all types of industries, but public sector has been much more challenging. There's a lot of things that have changed over the course of the last decade or so. We have had a lot of retirements. We've had much higher turnover than we've ever seen. That's been globally and definitely nationwide with the Great Resignation that they coined it in the last couple of years. So we have to be we have to pivot a lot. That's our favorite buzzword, right, Emily? So we have to evolve in the way that we run these recruitments, in the way that we offer advancement opportunities, career development opportunities for people. And so this is just part of that process that we've been doing at least for the last 9 years or so. And so this is another one of those. So what we did is we created the trainee position. It is at a lower pay scale than the regulatory 1. So the regulatory specialist 1 and 2 is unchanged. But what we're proposing is that we have that trainee level at a lower class range, which is why we're bringing it towards the board, to the board, because the board is, we are required to have the board set the compensation for any new position. So while it's not a new position per se, it is a new entry level position. And I am asking for board approval to set the range for 34.2 for the regulatory compliance trainee. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Any questions for Abby? Director Boatright.
Thank you, President Kearns. Abby, so this is not a new full-time employee at the district position. This is basically attrition. Somebody else is leaving a position and we're looking to backfill
A
at a
vacancy,
lower trainee rate.
correct. Yes, there's a vacancy currently.
Who will be training the new regulatory compliance training?
The superintendent and the foreman in the position. I mean, mostly, I mean, every once in a while, I'm sure they'll go to with an experienced operator to a certain plant in which they're the chief plant operator of, so that they can go over some of the ins and outs of the specific plants.
Okay, in anticipation of how long will a new employee be in a OIT position? Is that the state allows for 2 years on a wastewater, operator in training, certification. I'm not sure if it's the same for the water side. Is this the same thing where we're looking at a 2-year training period where they must advance or?
Yes, so if you also attached with your packet is the job description with the updated trainee requirements that does require within 2 years for them to obtain their grade 2 water treatment certification. So you referred to wastewater treatment. That is a state requirement to have an OIT for 1,800 hours before you're eligible to get your grade 1. On the water side, they don't have the OIT requirement like that, but we do have an OIT position in the water department. It's just not state required like it is in wastewater.
Yeah. How low do you anticipate the bar being for this OIT for regulatory compliance, as far as will they have any kind of water certificate at all, or
No. So we find it increasingly difficult to find people to hire anyone with certificates these days. It's very rare for people to move to this area with certificates. And so we do start quite a few people at OIT level and on the water side. Plus we have a really unique system. We have, 11 surface water treatment plants that these guys can attest to that are all different. We maybe have a couple newer ones that are similar. So even coming in with a certification, you can get a T2 in water and have 0 experience in water. So you might know what the book says about water, but you've never, and Jeff could attest to this too, but you've never actually been in the water industry. So I wouldn't say we're setting the bar low. We're just looking for individuals who have other skill sets organizationally and have experience in other fields that would transfer easily into compliance reporting, Microsoft Office proficiency, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, could you one more time on the timeline for them to move to regulatory compliance 1?
They're allowed 2 years to get their T2 and then 2 years experience for water industry to be a regulatory compliance 1, as long as they're performing satisfactorily in the position.
Okay, and that's, they're going to be required to get that.
Correct.
And the pay scale or range for the OIT position, is that the 34.2?
Yeah, 34.2 is the range number. It's not the hourly range. So that's what the board sets is the hourly or the range number of 34.2. The regulatory compliance is 38.2 on the level 1 and then 42.2 on the level 2. So it's 10% between each level, which is again consistent with our internal compensation plan.
Just for reference, what is our current range for an OIT on water or OIT on wastewater? Are they equivalent still?
Water and wastewater?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is approximately, without having it in front of me, I could look it up on the website really quick, would be about $27.
Okay, so that 27 is actually the wages per hour. The range for an OIT and wastewater or water, I recall that as a 29.
It's a range 29, correct? We have 50 something ranges, so my
Yeah,
apologies for
I-
not knowing them off the
just-
top of my head. But I can look it up really quick. It's right here on our wage and salary schedule on the website. So let's see. The wastewater OIT is $26.53 an hour. And it's actually slightly lower, less than $1 an hour lower for the water trainee. The regulatory compliance will be approximately $29 an hour. So the regulatory compliance specialist as a whole has higher levels of responsibility for state recording and what we call consequence of error. And so the independent responsibility of the regulatory compliance coordinator is as such that in addition to the certifications, they are at a slightly higher range than the operators that are focused on operating typically 1 or 2 plants.
Is there a step on the wastewater side as an operator, generating a report? I would submit it to a supervisor. Is this the same thing where the overall compliance report is submitted to Trevor and then on to Eric to spot check before it goes on to? So then that just becomes incorporated into the employee evaluation as to how they're doing, how you catch potential misreporting. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Eric. I've got no further questions at this time.
Okay, Director Balin.
Yeah. So as I understand it, we have difficulty filling this position at a journeyman level. And so by adding an entry level position, that helps someone move through this classification. So when you fly this, well, question 1, the person that left, what was their hourly wage when they left? Somewhere around 27, 29?
No, they were, because they had been here for almost 5 years, it was about $40 an hour.
Okay, so all right, they were about $40 an hour and they were at that level 3.
They were at level 2.
They were at level 2.
Which it will be the 3rd level if we add the entry level, correct?
Oh, okay, so level 2 and level 3 are already established. Is that my understanding? Okay.
Correct. They're number 1 and 2, but they are the 2nd and 3rd level of the class series.
Okay, so if you flew this job series at a 1, 2, and 3, let's just say, so I don't know what the classification numbers really are, but at a 1, 2, and 3, the 1 being an entry level
Yes.
position, then that position description at an entry, you're going to be looking for the abilities to acquire the skills, knowledge, and abilities to advance.
Correct,
Okay, they don't have to have them then.
correct.
You're looking for that ability. Okay, so if I was going to apply, let's say I'm at Columbia College, and I saw this vacancy announcement, is it going to be really clear that it's an entry? As I think that there's a difference between an entry level where you really don't have to know anything, but you have to be motivated and you have to have the ability to acquire these skills. Help me figure this out, because I'm not, I would not know what this, when we're all done, are we going to put this out as an announcement that's actually going to have where say I'm getting my degree in water and I'm at the college, I'm going to know how much money is between the entry level and the journeyman level, the level 3.
Yes, so I'm not sure if you guys had an opportunity to review the job description. It's right up front after the summary. There's a section called class characteristics, and it goes through very detailed of what the different levels mean and what entry level means. So entry level in this classification series is not necessarily entry level at, my son just got a job at Safeway. At Safeway. Okay, so this is in the class series. So it doesn't mean you don't have any qualifications. It just means that in that classification, you don't have those minimum requirements of the certification and direct experience. So within this job description, it's very clear. It follows our other job descriptions, and then provides the range numbers at the top, the different characteristics of the different levels. And then it's posted on our website. And then the new class and wage summary, it will be updated on our website with that there. So you can see exactly what the hourly wage is between the OIT, the 1 and the 2 very clearly.
And I thank you for that, but not on this document. You're going to have to look it up on a schedule. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's correct. But
So-
on the advertisement, it clearly states the hourly wage.
Okay, great. That's all.
Yes.
That's all my question is.
Yes,
I'm a
and
student.
that is
I want to see how
required.
much
That's-
money, if I'm going to
Yes.
stick with this or not.
Yes.
I like to see the money, and these numbers, wouldn't compute to that. So that's what my total question is. Are we going to see the salary range?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Abby? Any public comment? Okay. Elena, good to see you again, Elena.
Hi, Elena Linehan. I'm a ratepayer, and I'd like to thank David Boatwright for using the words operator and training, because I was having a devil of a time trying to figure out what OIT stood for. I am passionately opposed to alphabet soup at public meetings, so I thank you for clearing that up for me.
Thank you, Elena. Anybody else? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve item number 8 on the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move on to regular business, I'm going to propose a 5-minute break. In fact, let's make it 10 minutes. So we'll reconvene at 10:58. And I need to recuse myself from the first 2 items of regular business. So Vice President Ringen will be calling the meeting back to order. Thank you. 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
We're good to go? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And Melissa, would you please?
Okay, item number 9. Consider approval of agreement regarding construction and transfer of a water main line extension to serve 10 parcels in the community of Jamestown, Blue Pine Property LLC.
Why is green for good? That's fine. Yeah, that means it's bad. Yeah, go ahead and start with this.
All right. Can you guys all hear me? Okay. All right. So Antonio Ramirez, Engineering Services Technician. This first item I have for you is a developer agreement for construction and transfer of a water main extension to serve 10 parcels in the community of Jamestown. Abby, can you scroll, I think, up to the vicinity map? No, it's okay. That's it. Yeah. So there in that triangular shape there, the yellow highlight, you'll see the 10 parcels or lots, depending on how you want to look at it. They're on the east side of the Sierra Railroad right away at the eastern end of Jamestown. It's a fairly undeveloped area of the original township. So the next page, it kind of gives you an aerial view of it. Kind of shows you that the areas are currently vacant. These parcels were created basically from the original township lots. So, and then they were reconfigured into this format here. You can kind of see that blue dash line. That's the general location of where the proposed water main is going to go. The next page, the exhibit map. Looks good. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So in order to serve these 10 parcels, they want to connect into an existing TUD water main. There is an existing 2-inch water main, a galvanized water main that goes across the Sierra Railroad right away. That's serving appears to be 3 homes. That water line is going to be removed, abandoned, and replaced with this 8-inch. And those 3 parcels will be connected to the new main. So we'll be cleaning up, some old infrastructure with this. So again, we'll be tying into existing water main on the west side of the railroad, going across the railroad right away with an 8-inch main, and then continuing northward to the rest of the parcels. There will be at least 2 hydrants, one where at the end of the main, the other one at the where it says street there, right about there. Yeah, thank you. The railroad is aware of the project. We've already reviewed and approved plans. The railroad's agreeable to it, and they've listed a couple conditions they wanted us to add to the plan. So they're agreeable to the project, and we're really just kind of waiting for approval, and the project can start once the board approves. The developer agreement is a standard developer agreement. There is no real special provisions. It just has the standard provisions informing the developer that they'll hire, proper engineer to design the pipeline, which they've done, and the plans are approved, that they'll hire a proper contractor who will be insured, and that the work will be done under our inspection. The construction of water main, the cost of that will be entirely borne by the developer. So TUD is not on the hook for building any of this. Even our inspection costs will be covered by the deposit, which is specified in the agreement. The agreement also specifies the connection fee, the current connection fee. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Go ahead. And Antonio, I think, sometimes my hearing goes a little wee-wah. So I think in the last couple of sentences, you'd answered my question. TUD has no cost in this water line at all and is a collateral benefit of this, we're going to get to abandon a 2-inch galvanized water main. Do we know if these 3 lots have our most current radio read meters and all of that? Are we replacing all the way through to the meter? As far as new pipeline, are we picking it up somewhere?
Usually when we do this, it's gonna go, I don't know whether the radio reads at this point. I can find that out, but at the time of construction, typically what we're gonna try and do is site the new meter locations, the new meter box locations at the same location that it is now or similar, just because that's where the private line is coming in. That being said, there might be a better place for it. It might get, moved 5 feet, 10 feet one way or the other. The property owners may want it somewhere significantly different. We don't know yet. But generally speaking, we try to keep it in the same spot.
Yeah, to kind of pinpoint my question, will we have new service line all the way to the meters for these existing 3 customers?
Yes, the brand new services off of the main. So whatever meter, typically, if it's not a radio read, my guess is that
that it will
Matt's
be,
guys are going to replace it. So everything will be brand new to these 3 people. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Any questions from folks out there? No? Then I'll bring it back to the board for an action.
I'll move that we move it as given.
Great. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Okay. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
And it looks like it's 4-0.
That just popped up.
Melissa, please.
Okay, item number 10, consider approving variance agreement for water service to non-adjacent parcel on Cherokee Road, Dorset.
Okay, again, Antonio Ramirez, engineering services technician. So we have another variance agreement, and kind of doing quite a bit of these lately. Mr. Dorsey first approached me several months ago requesting water service. He has a failed well. He deepened the well failed again. So he sought a connection. In order to do so, he's going to have to cross his neighbor's property. And he's gotten permission from the neighbor to do so. There are existing water services in his neighbor's property or a water service. So we'll be adding a service to an existing water line. He'll have about 225 feet of private water line that he'll interconnect to his private plumbing. I spent a good deal of time with operations, namely Matt, just ensuring that this wasn't going to create any issues operationally for the existing customer or other customers. So the pressure there is really high. So he had no concerns whatsoever adding. Sometimes when we do these variances, we require a participation agreement in the event that a water main may be extended past the property. We don't foresee that happening in this location anytime soon. We didn't see a benefit for really anyone to require that participation agreement because we just don't see a large diameter water main anytime soon going through the area. There's no development potential, at least it's not in the foreseeable future. So we felt that just granting the easement or granting the variance and it would be enough in this case. The intervening property owner will be also granting a water line easement to Mr. Dorsey. He's already prepared it, ready to record it once they complete their project. With that, I'll take some questions.
Yeah, did I hear you correctly saying, Antonio, that there will be another service here as well? Or did it?
Yeah, it wasn't clear. I'm sorry. So there's an existing service on the neighbor's property, about 225 feet north of Mr. Dorsey's property. And so we would just be adding a service next to that one onto an existing TUD line. So it'll be a double service on this 2-inch water line.
Okay, so we're acquiring a new customer that was on the well, that with the well,
Right.
that Mr. Dorsey. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Antonio, do they plan on keeping their existing water source as far as a well? Was that total failure or?
Yeah, it's pretty close. They are gonna keep it. Well, I can't say for sure because I didn't ask him that, but based on my conversations, he's gonna keep the well. Whether he uses it or not, sort of immaterial, he still has to have a backflow device at meter.
Okay, so yeah, that was the leading question going to. There's gonna be, and the backflow prevention device is gonna be located near the meter on an
Right
adjacent
at the meter,
property.
yes.
Is the adjacent property owner aware of a above ground?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I didn't mention, we went out there with both property owners and talked this all out and cited everything. So he's aware of, the intervening property owner is aware that there'll be backflow device sticking up out of the ground. Yeah.
Okay, and it's the Dorsey, the project property owner's responsibility as far as understanding the pressures and flows, volume that will be delivered. 225 feet of 1-inch line and plus, whatever on property seems pretty long, so. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, this is just a clarifying question, but when we use the words water service, water capacity fee, connection fee, are we talking all about the same thing?
No, so when I say water service, I mean that's pipeline. And so that's usually like a 1-inch pipeline to a meter box. And that's usually just a construction cost. So they'll be paying TUD staff to construct, to tie into the existing pipelines, construct a 1-inch line and an empty meter box. Capacity fees and connection fees are technically different things. I kind of lump them together just for simplicity, but a connection fee is your administrative fee and your meter set fee, which includes half an inch of labor and material parts for the meter itself. Capacity fees are supply, treatment, storage. So those are things where there's capacity in them that each person has to pay for. So state law makes us look at those separately.
So, and that's what this gentleman's asking for.
He's going to pay a capacity fee
Okay,
upon connection. Yeah. And that'll include the admin fee, meter set fee, and the capacity fees.
okay. A little question for Dawn. Okay, since our rate increase was based on the overall rise of costs, is staff looking at raising capacity fees for treated water?
So Steve, if Sheriff was here, Steve probably answer a little bit better, but our capacity fees has an annual inflationary increase. So we're at least keeping up to date somewhat, 3% or so.
Yeah.
But we just did discuss this. We do need to probably revisit and adjust our capacity fees.
Okay. Just seem to remember many, many years ago, we kind of got in trouble keeping one flat and one went up. Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a question for my own education. So when we say there's no development in the foreseeable future, what does that mean? What time horizon? Is that 5 years, 10 years, 50 years?
Right. So not really a date. I think when I look at these, I look at, say, like the preceding item, you have parcels all around you, right? It's fairly that can be, a permit can be applied for and suddenly you can build multiple homes. It's when you have, something might be, you have to have a zone change. That zone change then it triggers this announcement to all the public agencies who then in turn respond and tell that person, hey, you have to do a water main extension. Those take quite some time. And the people will know ahead of time that they would have to improve infrastructure in order to do the project. What we try to avoid is when there are turnkey properties that can easily benefit from a water main extension, then you're gonna really try to advocate for that. When it's a discretionary permit of the county, then and it's agricultural land, it's gonna take quite some time for that to develop. The other aspect of this is that this particular pipeline is a hydro pneumatic system, so you wouldn't necessarily continue extending that forever. So that's the other reason. That's more my reason for stating that it wouldn't be looped anytime soon, because from other directions, we have no other facilities either. So I'm not sure about answering your question entirely.
So in the event that Mr. Dorsey's children or grandchildren or great grandchildren decide to, build more houses on that lot, how would we accommodate that?
So we addressed this issue with Mr. Dorsey actually, and because of that concern, and that's why I've specifically did this for one single family residence. And I've told him that this is just for one single family residence. Your next one, you'll have to come back to the board again, just to be careful, basically. And all applicants now with the ADUs, for instance, there'll be a point where you might have concerns. I've been told by operations that we don't really have any dire concerns on this particular pipeline, adding a connection or two. But for Dorsey's sake, in this situation, it's going to be addressed separately if he wants to build a second home.
Thank you.
Any further question? Yes.
I'm just curious, which hydro system is this on? Oh, okay. It's in good shape. It's in good shape, that hydro station. So I know that currently the demand's pretty low on that. So this is not gonna tax that hydro station at all.
Okay, any further questions? No? How about from the audience? Anybody? Nope. Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll move to approve the variance from water rules and regs section 6.02 regarding water service to a non-adjacent parcel on Cherokee Road.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 4-0.
Thanks, Antonio.
Thank you, Antonio.
Can you get our president back?
Antonio, we want trying to tell Jeff. Thank you.
We voted you out.
What's that?
We voted you out.
Good. Thank you, Director Ringen. Appreciate that. Okay. Next item, Melissa.
Okay, item number 11, budget report and balance sheet for year ending June 30th, 2023.
Me again, board. Just, this is a quarterly report brought to the board pursuant to our accounting and budgeting policy. This one's unique in that it's our fiscal year end, June 30th. And, the idea behind the budget report is comparing actual results to budget to identify trends, to identify something that's coming up. And if you look back over the last year, you remember me telling you, we got inflation, we got other concerns where we're at. When you get to the end of the year, it's a little different because we've already gone past June 30th. We've adopted a budget for next year. So really at the end of the year, what's most important is our independent audit. So we're working on closing the books right now. That consists of a great deal of adjusting journal entries, analysis, preparation. The auditors will be here the last week in August. We plan on delivering the audit report to the board, but by the end of September is typically when we do that. So I want to emphasize this report here. It's just a few slides. We'll go over it and answer any questions you might have. But this report is really pre-audit, so the numbers we're having in there, Every quarter we bring to you, it's a combined budget report, which compares the adopted budget versus the actual results. Again, I'm emphasizing this as pre-audit, meaning we have our year-end closing process, which will consist of numerous and significant adjustments necessary for the audited financial statements. So the first slide you see up here is combined revenue. And again, when I say combined, this is both water and sewer funds together. The total revenues received were $25.8 million. Going down the classes of revenue that you see there, utility billing is slightly under budget, but darn near spot on. As a reminder, we have 4 more cycles that will have a number of days from June in them. So part of that audit calculation. So essentially we're spot on with budget as far as the service charges collected. Kind of moving down the list, if you will, investment income, we have some earnings from our construction loan. We have Chandler year-end adjustments that'll be coming up. So that number most likely will change going forward. And then finally, the last 3 items are capital related, either capital grants, contributed capital, or those capacity and connection charges. Those aren't budgeted items. So essentially, if you take out those last 3 items, we're almost spot on with the budget as far as what's on there, just comparing the 12 months. The next slide is combined expenses. Total combined expenses were $18 million, but I will note that that's 2.5 million more than this same time last year. The numbers here are before capital, meaning CIP, before reserves, before any PERS or OPEB year-end adjustments, which can be significant. So those will be part of that. I'll also let the board know that every 2 years, we're required to have an OPEB valuation, an actuarial valuation, essentially our health insurance, other post-employee benefits. So we're working on that right now with the actuarial, and they will have a report with a new actuarial valuation for you. But in just looking at these other expenses, the biggest dollar amount is that personnel up there. But really what that relates to is we had 944,000 of our own labor working on capital improvements this year. By far and away, the largest we've had since I've been here. We've got a lot done. We had a big CIP this year, and they've really done a lot, especially this last month in there. Some of the other ones you see there, services, you can see it's $500,000 under it in there. And general and admin is also quite a bit under the budget. Well, first and foremost is consultants. We had budgeted quite a bit for the ongoing PG&E negotiations. Directly with that and consultants, that obviously got suspended or put on hold. General and admin, we had a sizable amount of legal expenses budgeted for that same purpose. We had some other changes as far as insurance, damage claims, and there's a whole host of other classifications that kind of fall into that general and administrative. And the last slide I'll leave you with is just, I had these last quarter when we came up here, but now that we're at year end, I mentioned total expense. This is just comparing this right here, this actual before audit to where we were at the same time last year. Total expense, 2.5 million increase. Personnel, 1.8 million. Chemicals, 50%, 195,000. And as near as I can tell, they're still going up. Repairs, up 51%. And again, the main reason for that isn't so much that we're doing a lot more repairs. It's really the cost of materials that we've seen. But we are doing a lot of repairs. We've had a lot of leaks as of late. We don't know exactly why, but a lot of those. And then finally, utilities is up. Electricity's kind of flattened out. It really spiked last year, especially. But again, those went up there. So, the end story or the end result at this point is we're very much on track with the budget as adopted. The real critical report will be from the auditors. When we get the audit report we're going to have a new PERS valuation. We'll have a new OPEB actuarial evaluation. We have a lot of grants in progress and we're working on the grant receivables right now. We're working on the capital improvements. We had millions of dollars of capital improvements this last month. So as far as for today in this quarterly report, again, like I said, it's the end of the year. There's nothing that stands out that we haven't talked about before. There's no action affecting the future budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Director Ringen, you got a question?
On that last screen, all of those increases, is this that would reflect in what you were talking about, the I think it was 500,000 a month deficit.
Could you show that slide, please?
Sure. You see if.
Some of those are really big numbers.
So, part of this, again, this is just comparing it to the same period last year. But when we did the budget for fiscal year 23, some of these we're already experiencing. So when you look at that budget to actual, the numbers aren't that great a difference because when we did the fiscal year 23 budget, we already had seen chemicals go up. We already had seen electric go up. We'd already seen those. So, the budget really took those into account. But as you mentioned in here, the projection in the rate study was at this rate, we would lose $500,000 a month. So with the new rate increase that we passed and everything else, that was based on that rate study. So again, that $500,000 a month should be gone once the rate study is enacted. Now, keep in mind, the rate is effective August 1st. The period of billing, those new rates won't be fully rolled out to the customers until September 1st. So we really got to get through a couple months before we start taking that in. So, halfway through fiscal year 24, we're still going to be showing a deficit because of some of these items. But then the second half of the year, we should be back on track. And then we don't have that sizable rate increase for the remaining years.
I know that when I went through the claim summary this last week, it was eye-popping what TUD has to pay PG&E and the other the other electric group. I mean, it was huge amounts of money. That's it for me.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay. And let's see, I didn't look on there. Do we need to vote and approve this or accept this, or is this a non-action item?
It's recommended the board accept and file.
Okay, and I will entertain a motion.
No?
First of all, let's have some comment. If there's any comment out there, please. Okay, I now I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept Steve's report on the budget. If there's not any further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Melissa.
Okay, item number 12, update on district operations for June 2023.
Call operations director. I'll go quick. It's on the raw water. They're continuing on the USDR meter grant. Selling meters around, but
Hey, Eric, could you pull that microphone a little closer there,
I'll
please?
turn it on too.
Okay, good. That'd be really good. Thank you.
So, yeah. Raw water continued on the USBR meter grant, installing meters. They have 50 or 60 installed. They're about a third of the way done. So they're making headway slowly. They've been very busy. They're continuing doing road maintenance from winter. around the ditch system too. Got beat up. Water treatment, biannual filter inspections, and then worked with distribution, installing a new pump at Tehachapi Hydro Station, replacing a 25-year-old pump. Distribution, they continued annual valve maintenance. That's on the PRVs. Completed new plumbing and pump install at Stephen Court Hydro Station. On page 10, there's a picture of that. That's a good picture. That'll be a big help to those guys. They had to go up there a lot and work on that station. Construction maintenance, 2 main line breaks, 2 main line leaks, 6 service lateral repairs, and 7 work orders. And then they installed 1,100 feet of 10-inch C900 on Mount Provo on that CIP project. And they have continued to work on the Millville sewer lift station and the Parrots Ferry sewer lift station. Wastewater collection, annual maintenance, inspection on sewer easements. Worked with construction maintenance, installing a new vault at Millville on that CIP project, and then put the new Parrots Ferry lift station online. And then wastewater treatment, continued working on irrigation with the ranchers to get water coming out of courts. And then routine maintenance around regional and Twain Harte wastewater. And the other good news too is our TUD critical facilities fuel reduction project was completed a few weeks ago. I don't remember how many sites Emily's not here. I think it was 5 different sites around the district with water tanks, water treatment plants. So, and it looks real good around those sites now. So a lot of protection for us. That's all I have.
Any questions for Eric? Director Rand?
Well, first of all, a comment. Great report. There was a ton of information in there. The tanks in Mona Vista, where are we at on those?
We're still working through figuring out what we're gonna do there.
Mono Village.
Yeah.
Or Mona,
The three
the 3 tanks, yeah, we're still working through how we're gonna address that.
Well, make sure you chew a lot of bubble gum.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a, well, I don't have to tell you guys, but that's a extremely serious situation. We need to get rectified as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got a question about Mount Provo. Is that completed now or are we all done?
No.
there? Not yet.
No, they've run into some rock.
Oh, good.
So it went down there. I mean, they had some days where they were getting 60 feet in just because they were jackhammering all day long. So they've gotten to some better digging now. So they're going well.
Okay, so are we 50%,
I don't think we're
75%?
even 50.
Not even 50 yet. Okay, all right. That's what I was wondering. Director Ringen?
One more question. How are they doing with the traffic situation out there?
It's been pretty good.
Has it?
Yeah, there's still a lane open, or they're opening a lane, for people in there.
Because I know there was a lot of complaints.
There was, and then we sat down and had a safety meeting basically on that, to try and keep a lane open, or if there was an emergency situation there. And made a call list down and what will happen in case there's an emergency there, and then directed that to OES and the county with the call list if they call us first if there's a fire or we need.
That's what I was gonna say. No fires, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
okay. Director Boatright?
Eric, are we missing a Twain Harte effluent meter? At what page is it? It's page 16. That it's got an influent total and no effluent. Well, I mean, it's got an insignificant amount of effluent.
What did we do? We just put a new meter in there.
Okay.
Yes,
I think it was a meter malfunction of some sort.
yeah.
And then do you know what the date is for the numbers on Quartz Reservoir that are showing the Quartz Reservoir acre feet storage? Do you know if that was June 1st or if it June 30th, July 1st?
I do not know the date. I'd have to ask.
Most likely June 30th.
Yeah, okay.
Need to push some water.
Oh, that's, yeah, we're nervous.
Question.
Director Balin.
Yeah, so we recently got sort of a bad report card on a tank. What are the next steps on that? That was a,
The Mono Village.
The Mona Village.
yeah,
So we're working forward to try and figure out what we're gonna do and how we're gonna approach the situation to make sure we have the storage that we need and what we can do to get those tanks offline.
and how many tanks were involved? Is it one
So
or
there's 3 tanks there and 2 of the tanks came back with a bad report.
two?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's in reference to the Mona Village tanks that we got information on? Okay,
Go ahead.
is there any in review of the email from General Manager Perkins? So there's 2 tanks at Mona Village that are in extremely poor condition, or
Yes.
looking at now, do we notify our neighbors when we've got a situation like that, or where we at with that?
No,
That is there any?
well, that's, we're working on plans going forward right now.
Do we know how critical those tanks are? Having been notified of potential hazard that's,
Well, I mean, we know they're bad, but we have to figure out a plan before we can just take them out of service.
So I'm not in operations anymore, but this isn't the first, unfortunately, it's not the first time we've been in this scenario. And so we have some options. Here, it's a little unique because there's 3 really close within 8 feet of each other. It just makes it a challenge just to work around it. But in some instances, like the 420, the 420 tank out in Gibbs is no longer in service. Now that, we decided to bring that down to half tank, half volume, in case there was some sort of catastrophic failure, we'd only have half that volume of water to deal with. So in Mono Village, again, I'm not in operation. I'm not sure what they're thinking, but depending on the valving, I'm sure Trevor Cowden and Matt will work on this, but the way they're valved, the way the water comes in, it goes out, they're not just tanks. These were clear wells for the old Mono Village water treatment plant. So the plumbing is very unique. So they've got to figure out a way to adjust the plumbing, fix the plumbing so that they can get 2 of those tanks offline and just leave 1 online. And for the record, all 3 tanks are compromised. One of them is in better shape than the other 2. And so the long-term strategy is what Eric's talking about. Matt and Trevor and engineering and Eric all have to figure out another way to supply water to the zone, either to construct a new tank or from another zone altogether. There's just a lot of thought that needs to go.
Are we? I want to ask a question here and I don't want to back you into a corner. So if it does, just tell me and I'll be quiet. But are we pretty sure that it's replacement of these tanks? I mean, they're not fixable?
Oh, no. Well, I say it so assertively. We've learned a lot over the years. These tanks are bolted steel tanks. In the 90s and the early 2000s, through a contractor, we attempted to rehab these tanks with special coatings and this, that, and the other thing. In the end, it was a fool's errand. We spent an awful lot of money thinking we're repairing tanks that weren't really repairable. Now we feel like, if Eric Johnson was here, he'd probably agree with me, but we feel like these bolted tanks are one-time use tank. They have probably a safe life expectancy of between a tank that's built today, of course, around 30 years. The older tanks that were constructed in the 60s and 70s, very different thickness of metal, very different coatings, if any, in very different circumstances. So they don't really have a 25 to 30 year life expectancy, although these tanks are nearing that 30+ year mark. So
okay,
these are 3 bolted tanks that really have a one-time use period.
Gotcha. That answers my question. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for Eric on his report? Director Jacobs.
I've got a question on page 19, or excuse me, page 15. The collection system under CIP projects. collection system lining postponed. Just curious why that's got postponed.
So they didn't have a large area to do. So they found a lot of real small sections to do, and it wasn't going to be cost effective to come up and do all these little sections versus come and do in a large area.
Anything else? Director Ringen?
Real quick, just how's courts doing?
It's going a lot slower than we would like it to.
Really, even with all this heat?
The heat has helped. It's definitely the outflows have kicked up quite a bit. We fired up the 40 horsepower pump last week, trying to push more water out, but the crews have been out fixing a lot of leaks this year too. So we've had a few systems off because of that, but they're back up and running now.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it for Eric. Thank you. Appreciate it, Eric. Good job. And that's a review only item. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 13, Melissa.
Okay, item number 13, Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant Progress Report.
Well, at the last minute, I'm the stand-in for Eric Johnson. I was going to give this to Eric Hall and he gave me a funny look. So I'll do it. I'll be as brief as I can, mainly because, this is Eric Johnson and Jennifer's. But if you go to Abby, you have control, please. The project overview, I think it's the second screen. We're down to the point where there's a lot of detail work. So the goal here on this screen here is to get as many of those check marks as possible. And to date, we still have just the one check mark. That's not to say there's an awful lot of work going on in every other one of those starred areas, but it's all very detailed. And so some of those things will be wrapping up in the next weeks and months. So there's not really a lot to report here as far as progress goes. What's the next page? Let's go up. So here's a kind of this percentage of completion. I feel like a couple of months ago, we were sitting around 65%. Today, it looks like, I don't know, about 76% is from a budget standpoint. Next page. I think this hasn't changed much. I know what seems to draw a lot of questions is that second column. It seems to be negative. Jennifer and Eric Johnson have explained the reason for that and that they're working on why that's in the negative. But I can't talk more on that. Next page. So this little dashboard of projects, and like I mentioned, there's a lot of detail work now, all those areas. But one that I'm most not concerned, but look forward to the look ahead, where they can install the bubble diffusers on the aeration basins. That'll be exciting. It's good work. It continue to install mechanical equipment, which is all over the place. And then the one I'm really eyeballing is the preparing for the clean water testing. That's a milestone. When we do the clean water testing and it's on our 3-month look ahead, there'll should be a lot of check marks. So essentially they're going to fill up the entire plant everywhere, full of water, clean water-ish. Or the clean water, but anyway, it's going to be some sort of clean water, not raw sewage water. And they're going to test every single piece of equipment, pump, monitor, and that's the 24-hour test that QIT has to perform. Pace has to be there. A lot of the vendors have to be with their equipment. So anyhow, that's kind of what I'm looking for, the milestone. Next page. These are just some pictures of, this head works. Yeah, some head works that were installed. If I can go back, it doesn't stay here too. Director Boatwright knows early in the stage, it's about 2 years in the making, Dave, when we started talking about this design and some of the input from the operations standpoint that we've learned over all these years of operating, whether it's water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant, is redundancy. So David and I made darn sure there was lots of redundancy here because with the wastewater treatment plant, we can't simply turn the valve off and allow sewer to go someplace else. This plant will be in service the day it starts, so the day it ends 40 years from now. So we need to have this flexibility of redundancy. And one of the most, when I go down there and I see this treatment plant, I'm often time to remind myself how fortunate we are to be able to design it and build it the way it is for the operator's sake. You know, David and I have joked-ish saying, you know, once the engineers, design, construction crews build it, they leave, then the operator's there every day dealing with this thing. So lots of good input from our standpoint. So thank you. This is a sludge dewatering device. Next page. More of the sludge dewatering device, screw press equipment. Q.Its crews doing some coatings. Analytical stuff and fire hydrants. I don't know how many fire hydrants on site, but there's just one I see.
What, that just popped something in my head there. What feeds those fire hydrants? Is it treated water? Is it the water that's
probably knows better than I believe this is going to come from our secondary reuse pumps station, not treated. I don't think this can be treated water, but it could be.
It's tertiary.
This is
Tertiary.
tertiary treated. Yeah,
Okay.
I did say secondary. Yeah, but
perfect?
we have we didn't see a picture of it, but where's that overview picture? Is it the next page? So to the very upper end of the corner and to the left, a little bit. Whoop, not quite. See the clarifier? See the clarifier? Yeah, now go up from this clarifier. Yeah, go up to the left, a little bit to the left, right there. That is a pump station that all the treated tertiary water that's not going down towards the reclamation system, we can grab hold of that some of that water and use it throughout the facility.
Okay,
So that's where water's coming from.
that's good. I know that's something Director Bailey's brought up many times about using non-treated water in our fire hydrants. So that's good to see. We're practicing that right there.
Question on that, will that be painted purple instead of yellow?
It is purple. I wish we had a close-up picture. I'll Oh, you mean that hydrant? It should be painted purple. Yes.
That's definitely.
Yeah.
Color.
Good catch.
But going back to at some future date when we get a tour of it, that'll probably be a little bit more clear. But is this a confined space as far as this north process station?
I believe so. That's subsurface. Yes.
Thought we were open over the top of that. Interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of tours, and there's probably several tours of this facility between now and the end, and someday a groundbreaking ceremony, not a groundbreak. We did that. What do we call the next? It's not a ground
Ribbon cutting. There you
I know.
go.
Or the shower. Yeah,
We're gonna have some sort of a ceremony, but there'll be a tour or two. I know RWM is already on the calendar for the facility too, which you will all be invited to. It's the end of that report.
Okay, any other questions for Don? All right, well, that was informational only as well. So thank you, Don. We appreciate it. Okay, next item is staff reports.
I'll be really brief. I guess because of the couple of holidays we've had, for one reason or another, there hasn't been a lot of Tuolumne County meetings, like the Natural Resources Committee meeting was canceled or postponed. There hasn't been a Water Policy Advisory Committee meeting in a while. I think that's because of the Tuolumne County Water Agency is active. I haven't heard anything from them in a while, so I don't have any more news on Tuolumne County Water Agency, other than they did fund eventually. Took a couple of cycle board meetings, but they did finally fund the agency. So that's underway, and we'll just see what happens. I know Eric may want to talk about this, but I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. It's been quite a remarkable month of July for TUD, for Tuolumne County, for what we've accomplished here just recently. And I know you talked about your staff in your ops report, but the Ridgewood transmission line was recently constructed this summer. I thought it would get done by this fall. I thought it'd be later on this fall or this winter, but because of that construction of that transmission line, we're bringing water from the upper basin zone all the way down to Phoenix Lake Park water system. So that water system has been consolidated today. Also now the Scenic View water treatment system has been taken offline as consolidated as well. Now, that's a milestone. That's historic for TUD. This is the first, not the first, but it's been a long time since we've done this sort of work. It's really, really going to pay off dividends for our ratepayers to come. The alternative was to spend many $1 million on both of those systems to bring them up to standard versus consolidating with a new modern transmission line and hopefully someday a water system up in Sierra Pines. So currently, like I said, those two systems are now being served by the upper basin system. The upper basin system has 3 water treatment plants above all them that feed into that system. So that's how the water is going to get there. And we're really sure that there's not going to be any troubles down the road serving these systems now. Hopefully in the very near future, we'll find some funding to fund the Sierra Pines treatment plant, and that system will be even more better. Again, on the heels of that one, I don't know which one came first, but the Mount Provo transmission line, you remember last summer we reported many times on the progress of that. The pipeline was constructed a bit ago, but we also had to construct a booster station from the Crystal Falls water treatment plant to boost water up to the Cedar Ridge water treatment plant, which was all constructed on time and within budget easily. But what was the big hangup there was we couldn't get power from PG&E, power to the new pump station at Crystal Falls. We couldn't use existing power, it's too big. But we finally got that. Eric pulled some strings and talked to the right people and finally got power there. And now we have another water system, the Cedar Ridge water treatment system, that's been consolidated and has emergency intertie. So literally that's, and I'm just airballing, that's got to be $7 to $8 million per system that we'd have to throw in there in lieu of what we've just done. So we're really truly starting to show our good work and cost savings to our future customers and ratepayers. So pretty proud of this moment. This is, for me, it's just, my very first system I had was the Cedar Ridge water treatment plant. Not long after that, I got to do the Scenic View water treatment plant, and later I got the Crystal Falls water treatment. I have a lot of history and a lot of time and circumstances in those treatment systems, and to see us here today is just very uplifting for me. So anyway, that's the end of my report.
Good.
Next month's off.
Okay, well, I'll say it again next one because I'm still going to be proud of it.
All right, good. Any other comments for Don? Director Jacobs?
Yep, I have a question. What's the status of the Sierra Pines project funding and moving that forward?
Yeah, and this is Eric Johnson's bailiwick, but we're about 90% designed. It won't take us long to get to 100% designed, I suppose. I think it will say that. All of the environmental is done. All of the permitting is done. It's shovel ready. It is 100% shovel ready. We just don't have $52 million laying around. The projected cost is $52 million, increasing monthly, I'm sure, but we have funding. You and Eric, just jump right in on the funding side.
So Eric can fill in all the specific details, but he did bring me in this week. I think it was Wednesday. We had a meeting with USDA. It included the engineer, the funding person in charge, and the specific person assigned to us. They've received our application. They have some questions on it. There is some questioning about timing as far as what we can do and when. So Eric wanted to bring up to them possible phasing of the project versus, covering the full 52 million. He also has been in contact with the State Water Board as far as they've offered some grant funding specifically, and now they're talking low interest loans. So we have a meeting tomorrow or the next day with them as well. So there's been some definite work and progress on that. So it's active.
And what's the current likelihood of moving forward?
Well, when you say moving forward, everybody agrees on the need for the project.
Right.
And it's just a matter of how do we get there between grant, loan, hook, crook, whatever you want to on that. I mean, this is not going to be anything that's going to be breaking ground, in the next day or week by any means. But, we're hoping to get some more definitive answers. The state always seems to be the slowest in confirming the funding agreement. There's been a lot of talk lately, if you've seen the news, about the governor saying that he wants to expedite these things. The feds still have their pot of money with USDA, which is kind of a different animal in itself. But these are basically the same people we worked with on regional. So they know us and we know them. So I think everybody's looking for some real options to get this thing moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Steve, USDA is federal and
Correct.
the other one's state.
Yeah.
And we can actually have a combination of both.
Well, that was one of the things I was really pressing them on, because when we did the regional plant down there, they said any grant from the state would offset grant from the feds. But they said on this project, it's different. I don't know exactly how it's different in there. But they both recognize neither one of them think they can spot the whole 50 million. So part of our discussions is how can we leverage both of them as well as TUD, if we were to take on some of these loans. So they seem to be working with each other, but neither one of them has any pull or say over the other one. So, but it's in our favor if we're talking to the state to say USDA is going to help us, but they can't pay the whole thing. USDA was very understanding and open to it. If you could get some money from the state, it'd probably really help us. So we're playing every card we got at this point to keep it going.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any other staff reports?
You all have heard plenty from me today. I don't.
Yes, we have.
Anymore. I can say that I probably won't have anything on the next several reports, so we'll see you in September. But I did want to say I appreciate the board's patience. I appreciate your questions. I go into this thinking it's very straightforward matter or whatever else, and I, so I welcome your input. It helps to educate the public. It helps to educate the board, and I'm always here to serve the board in the best way. So thank you today. I know it was a lot and some of it more educational in nature, but I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, moving on to directors. Oh, I'm sorry, Abby. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I can get okay. Don mentioned the consolidation project, Cedar Ridge, Crystal Falls. And so I think Emily emailed it out to you, but Aqua picked that up in their newsletter. And so they're interested in the projects that we have, particularly about consolidation. So we're proud of that. Also, we got local media, My Mother Lode in the paper. So, and some good press on that, people seeing the importance of these projects that we're doing. So that's a good thing. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Tuolumne County has what's called a local multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. They write it, it's about every 5 years has to be updated. Many other local agencies such as TUD have an annex within that plan. And that plan is what helps us receive FEMA funding on the hazard mitigation side, but also the disaster recovery public assistance side. So Tuolumne County has enacted or has begun the process of updating the plan, which expires in April of 2024. Eric and I are attending the second of many this Thursday to update that. So you'll see that plan, TUD's annex towards the end of this year, probably fallish, early winter, so that we can update our own plan and get board approval for that before it goes on and gets ultimately approved by the Board of Supervisors. They're shooting for February of 2024. So just that's coming on the horizon. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for not using the alphabet soup that Elena was talking about earlier. Okay, director's report. Is that it for staff? One last call. All right, okay, let's move on to director's communications. Who'd like to start? Anybody have anything, I should say?
The only thing I have that has been addressed and stuff is a ongoing concern for the Mona Village water storage tanks that I appreciate the information and, you know, would like to see ongoing communications on that. But expedite it. Thank you.
Okay, let's just go around the room here. Director Ringen.
Okay, on July 12th, I attended the Twain Harte Community Services District Board meeting. And the reason why I did, I brought them a bunch of information that I've been working on for several years that has to do with ADUs and ADLs. That's additional living units. And they were in the process of trying to figure out how they're going to handle that situation, because the state has is pushing that really hard, and the county is really behind it too. And so at any rate, I pointed out to them if the information I gave them stopped the meeting, and they said they were going to have to study everything and discuss it and so on. But what I was trying to tell them is that you're going down a slippery slope, because at that beginning of that meeting, they were not going to charge capacity fees or anything else. They were just going to like ignore it. And I won't get into all the details, because you can really delve down into it. But because of all the years that I've been in the construction business and certified home inspector and blah, 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 I've looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I've seen lots of those additional living units and granny flats and everything else that are just they're nightmares. So anyway, then that afternoon, believe this or not, I did a Zoom meeting, and it was put on by Wade Crowfoot from California. And he, along with several other people, are pushing real hard to reintroduce beavers into California. And I've heard of this in the past, and quite honestly, I really support it. I think Forest Service needs to get on this and reintroduce those little guys so that they can slow the water down in a lot of the streams and things like that. I think it will really improve our water situation here in California, but Tuolumne also. And then on 7/18, attended once again the Twain Harte CSD special board meeting, which was a result of the first one, and we're back to the ADUs and ADLs. And my God, Dawn sent Antonio Ramirez there, and I didn't really say much, but it was a complete flip. They were now really taking him serious, and Antonio did an excellent job of reporting. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is because it's coming to our neighborhood soon. We're going to have this discussion and figure out what we're going to do. So it's great that Antonio has been involved in it as much as he has so far, and they question him really quite a bit, and we're very thankful to him for showing up. And then 7/19 attended the T. Stan Irwin meeting, and that was really informative. If we broke up into workshops or work groups, and the idea was to try and find projects that could be consolidated between various entities. So that's gonna be finished up, and then when we go looking for, when a project comes up, we'll be looking for not only grant money, but also to include as many entities into that project. So that's gonna be really something good. So that's it for me.
Director Balin.
Yes, I forget what day this was, Saturday. Was it last Saturday?
15th.
Okay, thank you. I was invited and joined, I joined Director Jacobs in as guest speakers for the Tuolumne County Women's Democratic Club.
Democratic Women's Coalition.
Thank you. And so at any rate, that was very enjoyable, and I appreciate the opportunity to tag team on that. And a couple of things, and I would like to request that the ADU, perhaps policy discussion, board discussion be agendized at some point, so we can, if we don't have policy, develop some. So however that can get on our docket, that would be very meaningful, and maybe Twain Hart will have already developed some policy that we can plagiarize. So let's wait a little bit. And then last thing I wanted to say is this came up at our meeting, and that was these three bills that are being introduced that are designed to target water rights, which really would affect our ability to acquire senior water rights from PG&E. And so I just wanted to say that two of the bills failed, and a third one was amended. And so I just want to say you guys got your Aqua thing, and make sure that you read that, because that has direct bearing on us. And that's all I need to report. Thank you.
Okay. Director Jacobs.
Yes, thank you. As Director Balin mentioned, we had a joint presentation at the Democratic Women's Coalition on the 15th. And also to report, I had a LAFCO meeting on July 10th. And that's it.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to say is tagging on to Director Balin's comments there about those three bills at the state level regarding water rights. Not only does it possibly, not only do they possibly impact the future of our possible acquisition of the PG&E water rights, it also impacts current water right holders, including PG&E, and how they would be looked at and controlled by the state, which is to me the biggest danger of the whole thing. To simply throw out over 100 years worth of water right law that's been in place and has worked really well, in my opinion, and to just throw that out to give the state even more control doesn't sit well with me. So that's just my opinion. So anyway, that's all we have. So we got out of here in just over 2 hours. Not too bad. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.